About 2 or 3 years ago, I was working on compiling the publications for a faculty. It was an average size faculty with an average number of researchers and an average number of research publications per year per researcher. And that said, we were still seeing like 700 to 800 research articles come out each year. And again, that's just one faculty. And 700 to 800 journal articles a year, I should say, is not even relatively high for the discipline or uncommon for a faculty of the size. But I should tell you, it feels like a lot when you see so much research come across your desk every day. In fact, it kind of feels like acutely unsettling in a way. Like there's so much valuable science and research that happens in a faculty, but often there's just simply not the capacity to really scale up communication efforts for it. In our case, like our team was already deeply involved in supporting various knowledge sharing and information exchange initiatives in the faculty, but we didn't have nearly the resources, right, to fully or directly support what it would take to share each and every new publication with the people or groups who might be interested in it or who might make decisions differently in light of it. Like that kind of objective just doesn't scale when you are dealing with this volume of research. There are just too many different departments. There's too many different labs. There are too many different topics and subjects and issues. And most importantly, there are just too many different unique audiences. But it was this dilemma that sparked the idea for a new platform we call Research Mesh. And the goal of Research Mesh is to bridge this gap and create a pathway for communicating every single new research article with precisely the right audience or audiences. In order to accomplish this objective at scale, Research Mesh aims to automate this aspect of sharing new research. You simply tell Research Mesh which researchers belong to a specific unit, whether that is a department or an institute or a center or a network or a research program or a lab. But then the platform basically takes care of the rest. Research Mesh uses sophisticated automation tools to compile all the metadata about new research journal articles involving your specific group of researchers. It collects information about all the work that your research team does and organizes it into one place. And once this data is structured, Research Mesh can use it across multiple platforms and in multiple ways. So Research Mesh can generate images to accompany research articles. It creates customized descriptions of the research studies. It even produces audio overview podcasts. So just imagine having a tool that automatically collates everything your research team publishes in academic journals and pulls it together in an engaging email newsletter. So we're trying to imagine like a push button or a turnkey solution for sharing new studies with anyone who needs or wants to follow your work. And here the goal is to engage these specific knowledge users. Whenever new research is published, whoever they might happen to be. We want to give your lab, your institute, your research center a way to directly engage and share your work with the knowledge users or communities who are most invested in the science that you do. So instead of thinking about like a large, diluted, or diverse audience, here we are trying to support building laser-focused niche audiences, people whose lives or work are directly connected to the research conducted by a given department or research program. I think it's important at this point to remember that while publications are one valuable output of research, they should probably not be the sole focus of a knowledge mobilization strategy. I mean, by the time research articles are written and peer-reviewed, accepted and typeset and published in a journal, like, it's often years after the research itself was conducted. So as we know, research articles are sometimes like out of date by the time they are finally published. And if they are not open access or freely available, a lot of them end up locked behind paywalls anyway. So clearly publication outputs they're not everything. But there are many important ways, right? Many other important ways that stakeholders and knowledge users and people like patient partners or industry partners, for example. There are a lot of ways that people who are not academic researchers can and should be involved in the whole research life cycle. And this involvement can and should be deeply more meaningful than merely reading the paper. But still, all that said, we still need a way to share all of this research across the board, precisely so that we can free up researchers and research support capacity to focus on the deeper, more relational knowledge brokering and exchange that does go beyond the journal articles themselves. I like to think of it this way, we need to set a new baseline expectation for how we support sharing and disseminating every new publication. And I say baseline because this is only the tip of the iceberg for what a meaningful knowledge mobilization strategy should probably entail. But it is something we can automate in order to free up investigators and research teams and support staff for that higher value stuff. And this seems like a great opportunity for automation and AI to actually help us do more important work by letting the robots do the robotic work. Plus, also, there's another crucial reason, I think, for automating communications about recently published research. And that is research development itself. Automating communications about new research can foster internal communication within departments and across research teams. I don't know if this has ever happened in your department, but I have definitely been a part of groups in my life who have all, worked in the same hallway and have had a less than fantastic idea about what one another is actually working on. So think about it. I mean, if we can automate some of the information flows around updating researchers about their colleagues' work, I think it can really help kind of grease the wheels for more collaboration among them. And finally, sharing publications in an automated and systematic way, I think also helps communication teams be more aware of new research so they can better profile and promote the research activity of their institutions. So we could imagine a hypothetical example. Let's imagine a small research lab studying the impact of microplastic fibers on jellyfish. So the question we would want to ask, I think, is, well, who cares about the research that this lab does? And probably we should all care, but who cares the most right now? Off the top of my head, I guess, marine biologists, researchers studying jellyfish, researchers studying microplastics, conservationists, environmental policy people, maybe even plastic manufacturers across industry sectors. And so we want to be able, in this example, to provide a plug and play way for this research lab to automatically generate a newsletter and podcast specifically about microplastics and jellyfish. That's the topic, right? That is the one thread that ties these audiences together. These are the people that this lab needs to coalesce. Okay, but just like think about in this example, like this lab actually needs to do two things here. They need to gather these critical audiences around their work and keep them engaged and informed. That's one thing. And they need more time to actually research and study the jellyfish and microplastics. And those two things are kind of at odds, right? When you think about it. I mean, assuming this lab doesn't magically have the extra funding to have their own dedicated communications staff, this is going to be difficult for them to consistently do, for them to consistently keep all these key audiences engaged, right? Like the more time and the more money and the more effort they put into communication about their science, like arguably the less time, the less money, and the less effort they have available for the critical science that they need to conduct. So ultimately, here's my hope for Research Mesh. Like I hope it provides the opportunity for research labs like this imaginary lab studying microplastics and jellyfish to both build up and gather their networks of stakeholders and collaborators and have more capacity to actually do the critical research. So here's my invitation to you, as you have made it all the way to the end of this video. This tool, Research Mesh, is currently in a closed beta testing pilot, but we are looking for a few more researchers or research support staff to join us in trying it out and experimenting with it. So if you are interested in exploring these frontiers of automation and AI and knowledge mobilization and some science communication and research administration, please let me know. I am curious for you to try Research Mesh, and I'm super curious to hear about how this tool can support either your research or the researchers you support. So just email us at info@researchmesh.com and we'll follow up as soon as we can. Thanks for considering being a part of this project with us, and I hope we can chat soon.